everyone, and welcome to the Double Blind Magic Hour, where we talk about what's going on in the world of psychedelics. Today, we're joined by East Forest, a musician, a podcast host. He has a podcast that I was honored to be on called 10 Laws that you should also check out. Among many other things, a human. He's a human that lives in Idaho most of the time, right?
Yeah. You know, I'm thinking of changing the name of my podcast. So I think you can do that. You know, I think people can roll with that. It's the same like feed and show, but a long time ago, like the very beginning when I started, I wanted to call it Walk the Walk or Walking the Walk, because it's a title of a song I have. But I just like that idea of like, how do you navigate just living essentially? And that was what I was really interested in, and just sort of gleaning little bits from people here and there. But my manager at the time was really insistent that I call it 10 Laws, because like, that's your song, people know. And I'm like, all right, which is fine, but it's got religious overtones.
It does. It does.
Or it's kind of like a Medium article or something, where it's like the 7 ways to find happiness, you know? And I don't like that reductive overtone, even though it's not at all the vibe.
Yeah. I mean, people, you know, at the risk of coming in strong with the assumptions about this cultural moment, you know, given the limited amount of attention that folks seem to have these days with social media and all, you know, reductionism is, you know, it's popular. It's like the 7 ways to be happy. And you just do these 7 things and then you'll be happy.
But I believe in people more. And I think that's kind of part of the problem, is that we all are dumbing each other down in a sense. And you're not wrong that for a lot of people it is true. We're looking for quick fixes and easy answers. And our brains are, in a way. Like, you see that, and it's easy to be like, all right, just tell me. Just tell me what to do.
Just tell me what to do.
Yeah, deep down, though, I think we actually are looking for something with a little more meat on the bone.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it seems like you're sort of referencing the optimism that was woven throughout the op-ed that you wrote for Double Blind. And, you know, you sort of seem to deeply believe in this idea that we need to give people more credit and that they can handle more complexity than we assume that they can. And you also told me before we started this podcast that you wanted me to push back a little. So here I go. I'm pushing back a little, and I'm going to say, can humans hold complexity? Yes. Do they have the capacity to hold complexity in this moment where a lot of people are extremely overwhelmed and trying to keep their heads above water, and we're not like given a framework for how to do that, and we don't have the space to? Maybe not.
It's information sickness. You know, so amidst that kind of climate, it's true. We are overwhelmed. I'm glad you brought up that article. So it's called The Soul of Choice. And I think that, in a sense, is a window into maybe my overarching hope or thesis of all the work that I'm doing, is kind of saying that you are needed, meaning the person, and that the way we make choices in the world is through a kind of inner process of discovering like what our North Star is, or stars. And that's really important today because of that information sickness. Like, we each have to know, what does it feel like to have our feet on the ground, and how do we navigate this world without, say, the Medium article that says, like, just follow these rules, because we know that's vapid in the end, and that we need to kind of have our own path. And in essence, that could be what's missing from like this aimlessness that we feel as a culture, is that people are a bit lost waiting for the top-down solution. And I'm essentially arguing that, look, all changes come from the inside out forever. I mean, more like, that's not really a choice. That's how things happen. It just becomes a collective thing at some point. But you do make a choice internally to do something or change something. And that maybe is what is missing a bit. Because there's so much external information that we get to forget our own volition.
But is it a choice if we don't recognize our agency in it? If we're sort of just like reacting because we are so stretched so thin emotionally and psychologically?
There you go. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of hitting the nail on the head of like being asleep, so to speak, or hypnotized. look, we we all, myself included, are just like dopamine fiends, just like feeding our systems all day long, and we've been completely hijacked in a way that is completely part and parcel with, I think, the polarization and the mental effects, the illness that we feel by being hijacked largely by information and technology.
Ironically, since here we go putting out more
Right?
information, but hopefully
Right.
it's information that encourages a slowing down and a different way of being and encouraging a different way of relating and being and interacting with content, so to speak.
Yeah. And there's different flavors of content. And I do think there's something interesting about stuff that involves listening. And typically podcasts are largely just audio based. Like you're usually multitasking and listening. That's how it goes with podcasts. And but there's something magical about that. I mean, that harkens back to like radio and radio plays, and even it probably goes back to like listening to stories around the fire in the dark, and our imaginations get lit up, and we just naturally start to like fill in the blanks visually in the images. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, on some level that feels healthier to me
Mm.
than like a YouTube video.
Mm.
If
Yeah,
you put them on a scale, like
I
one
don't
maybe has
know.
a little more you have more imagination. I think anytime there's more imagination involved, like your brain's literally working in a sense versus being more passive.
Something I've been thinking about a lot is this idea that the spiritual is political and the political is spiritual. And I know that you've had conversations that speak to this on your podcast. And so, as we're thinking about um, how important it is, how important we hypothesize it is for folks to slow down, to take that pause, and to digest information in a different way. I can't help but always come back to the systemic challenges that prevent people from doing that. And I'm not just talking about the fact that we all have smartphones with Instagram and, I mean, I like have 10 apps that ping at me all day long. I'm, group chat,
Huh.
WhatsApp group chats with
Should do
19
something
people,
about
19.
that. Yeah.
Are you telling me to mute my grandma? Anyway,
Maybe. Yeah.
but um, but I'm not just talking about that. I'm also talking about people who, I always imagine like the single parent maybe has more than one job, like
Yeah.
genuinely just doesn't have the capacity to engage in these kinds of practices that we're promoting, or doesn't think they do, or doesn't even know that they exist. Like, what do we do for all those people?
Hmm. That's a good question. I'm going to say that I believe that spirit doesn't discriminate, and that I mean that in the sense that none of us are divorced from a spiritual life. Like you can't run from it. And it finds you whether you're in affluence or whether you're in the depths of despair or have nothing or have everything. That being said, equal support for inner work we don't have. And it's kind of like that Maslow hierarchy of needs, of course. Like it's very true that if you're preoccupied with your basic needs, it's difficult then to have leisure time to ponder some of these other things. But at the same time, they're all embedded and woven into the human experience. So everyone's life is deeply spiritualized as much as they want it to be. But it's also true, and this is a bit of a contradiction, that we're absolutely not giving people that kind of support that maybe don't have the extra income or time to explore it. Largely speaking, a lot of these resources are things that people pay for or choose, right? I mean, I would prefer that we teach a little meditation in public school,
Oh yeah, of
like first
course.
grade. Like when I say like it's equal support, I mean, like, it's part of like our culture. It is in other countries in certain ways, where they learn a bit about mental discipline or emotional regulation. I mean, we
They
just
do
don't
that in other
prioritize it
countries
here.
and schools.
Yeah, and I also think it's in the culture a bit more. Like even in Japan, for instance, like from what I know, the Shinto religion that the country is based on is sort of more like like that God is everything and all things. It's not religious, or there's no hierarchy, there's no order in that. I don't even know if there's any texts in that way, but I'm definitely talking out of my ass at this point. But that's what I learned from Japanese people when I was there, and I thought that was amazing. And it just sort of that's sort of like percolates up through the culture itself. About, I mean, think about what our country was based on. It was based on Puritans
Mm-hmm.
and trying to have, religious freedom, I guess. But I mean, they were very religious,
Mm.
and that's like kind of, and our gods are more like capitalistic in that sense. But anyway, I think we do need to have people have equal support, and we could talk more about this, because that's the thing that I think is more the cutting edge of like the psychedelic space. That's its edge right now. It's like, what does it mean for this to be relevant to more people and supported for more people? So it's kind
Mm-hmm.
of an access, I guess, is a word around all of that. But
Have you thought about that?
oh yeah, I think about it a lot.
Like
Like,
what the answer is? I mean,
well, I don't think there's one answer. I mean, um, I think it's just multifaceted. If you zoom out, it's about like supporting inner work. Part of that could be early childhood education, like getting people early for sure. Part of that's empowering communities that don't have a lot of support to support themselves. And part of that, I mean, it's many things. Therapy for more people, healthcare for more people, psychedelic, even just like more money for people who want to do psychedelic work, scholarships essentially.
yeah.
But there's and decriminalizing these things, because no one should be in jail for that kind of stuff. But it's going to take generations for us to create a new story for groups that have been marginalized, that don't trust, and they shouldn't necessarily trust. I get that. I think we all have distrust of certain systems, but some people a lot more than others, and deservedly so.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm working on an essay right now that I think is going to be in issue 12, but no promises because I might not finish it in time. But it's basically about my experiences engaging with ketamine as a treatment for depression and anxiety. And I decided after much hemming and hawing that I was going to do a series of ketamine infusions in December. And I was hemming and hawing, why you ask? Because it was like, I can't remember how much, but
Had
many
you done
thousands
it
of dollars.
before,
No,
or oh,
I'd
okay,
never done ketamine in a clinical context before. I'd actually never done a psychedelic in a clinical context. I'd sat in ayahuasca ceremonies, I'd done mushrooms by myself, but I'd never been to like a medical clinic where they took my blood pressure and looked at my
right.
history, medical history, and stuff like that. It's a very weird experience, actually, that I didn't like, and I don't want to have again. But anyway, it was many thousands of dollars, and um, I guess it was nice to know that there was a nurse practitioner monitoring me on a camera from afar in case something was to happen with my physical body, and they would come in and, you know, make sure I was okay. But there wasn't anyone there that was really supporting me emotionally and spiritually. And I thought that that
Hmm.
was kind of crazy that I spent thousands and thousands of
It
dollars
is
and they
crazy.
basically like I kid you not. I mean, I felt like I was strapped into this exam chair. I mean, they had like the blood pressure thing on one hand and they had this other thing I can't remember, maybe monitoring my heart, and the machines are beep, beep, beep. And then they covered me in pillows. They put a noise canceling headphones and an eye mask. And,
Wow.
and then they shot me up with so much ketamine that
Was it
my
an
ego
IV?
IV that my ego completely dissolved.
Yeah.
And I wanted support. And I remember at one point muttering something along the lines of, human, human, is there a human somewhere? And no one, I mean, I was just so disoriented and I couldn't move. Anyway,
I've been
so
there. Yeah.
that was my experience with the infusions. And then I decided I was gonna try the lozenges at home. And that was a much better experience for me because I have my, whatever, my sage and my essential oils and my instruments, and I could lie in my own bed. But I also didn't have anyone there. I mean, they tell you to have someone there, but I said, I have enough psychedelic competence. I can do this on my own. And let's just say I'm glad that I do have psychedelic competence because I absolutely positively could not have gotten myself to the bathroom otherwise. Like I knew I needed to be on all fours and move very
Yeah.
slowly. And the point is, I'm sorry, I'm kind of rambling, but if Shelby Hartman, founder of a psychedelic magazine, is having these experiences, What are the experiences everyone else is having?
Yeah, ketamine specifically. I mean, I had an experience at a clinic where they came in and did the injection IM, and it was way too casual, and I was way too cavalier going in there, being like, no big deal, fucking ketamine, I can hit whatever. Like
No
I've been
big
around the
deal.
block. Yeah, it's like, believe me, listen, dude, I've done some things. Famous last words, and he's like kind of rushing, and he's like, I got to get out of here, and I'm like, it was in a group setting, so I was like, well, you got to wait for the other people, you know. And he finally put it on my arm, and he just walks out the door, and like 5 minutes later, you know, I thought he had most definitely 100% accidentally given me 1,000% too much. It's like, oh, they accidentally added some zeros to the dosage, and I'm blasted into the universe. And I didn't think I would die, but it was not comfortable, and I was really shocked by the power and just holding on for dear life. Turns out, of course, it was 70 milligrams. I mean, it was like a dose, you know, more than
Mm.
I would want now. But regardless, it's so powerful. It can be so strong. And I actually went to the owner of the clinic the next day and it's like, look, the, people are going into extremely vulnerable states, psychologically, spiritually, physically.
Yeah.
And you need to hold this with much, much more care, much
Mm.
more care and of a
Hmm.
container. And I think that's the key piece here is like what kind of container is around this to hold it, whether you're at home or at these clinics. And it is not being considered enough. And that's one of the reasons I'm such an advocate for music in psychedelics because I think it can be almost the whole container. If that's all you have, it can do a lot. And
Hmm.
even that's not being considered much at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. And I will say that I have a new relationship with your music since
Oh,
doing
good.
these ketamine
News
lozenges.
sounds like we broke up and then you came back to it or something.
Well, I always liked your music. I did. But I I don't know. For some reason, this is so silly in retrospect. For some reason, I never listened to it while I was tripping. I always make playlists for myself, and I never, for some reason, I never
That's what it's
actually
for.
that's not
Yeah.
true. I think I did. I would always put a couple tracks onto my playlist, but I never really like it was like, headphones, blindfold, listen to an entire album. Um,
Yeah.
your music is amazing.
Yeah. I think
I
it's
love your
nice when it
music.
doesn't shift to other, like, I think epigenetically, even we're used to hearing one voice carry you through from start to finish. And you can get into a zone and a comfort where, like, you just kind of know, like, I'm not going to have to reorient when this song ends to whatever comes on next. Like, okay, what is this? Where am I? Who is this? Okay. That happens. It's like a new soul walks in the room. That's not a
100%.
bad thing, but you do have to be like, where am I? You know, versus it just kind of keeps cruising, gets into these zones and these rooms. That can be an amazing experience that most people have just never experienced. They just don't know that might be nice because they've
Right.
never had it.
100%. It's like when you are listening to a DJ and they screw up and there isn't a smooth transition and all of a sudden the party's like for a moment.
Yeah,
Sometimes actually in a trip I've found that if you are needing to kind of evolve into the next chapter of the experience, that moving to a completely different sonic environment can be helpful with that, but it can also be disruptive.
it's a
And so I
gamble.
appreciate,
It's a
yeah,
gamble. Yeah.
it's a gamble. Did you know that there is one phase of sleep that almost everyone fails to get enough of? And this one phase of sleep is responsible for most of your body's daily rejuvenation, repair, controlling hunger and weight loss hormones, boosting energy, and so much more. I'm talking about deep sleep. And if you don't get enough, you'll probably struggle with cravings, slow metabolism, premature aging, or even worse conditions. Why don't most people get enough of this one most important phase of sleep? A big reason is magnesium deficiency because over 80% of the population is deficient in magnesium. And magnesium increases GABA, which encourages relaxation on a cellular level, which is critical for sleep. Magnesium also plays a key role in regulating your body's stress response system. Those with magnesium deficiency usually have higher stress levels, which negatively impacts sleep as well. Now, before you go out and buy a magnesium supplement, it's important to understand that most products out there only have 1 to 2 forms of magnesium, when the reality is your body needs all 7 forms of this essential sleep mineral. That's what makes Magnesium Breakthrough by Optimizers unique. Magnesium Breakthrough contains all 7 forms of magnesium designed to help calm your mind and help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up refreshed. For an exclusive offer, go to buyoptimizers.com/doubleblind and use promo code doubleblind during checkout to save 10%. So for those of you who don't know, Double Blind began as a print magazine, and it's still at the heart of what we do. I spent my whole career as a journalist before starting Double Blind, reporting on psychedelics, cannabis, and drug policy more broadly for Rolling Stone, Vice, LA Weekly, Quartz. I did just about everything in journalism. I worked at CBS News, covering breaking news, a major newspaper, small media startups, and if you haven't heard, journalism is in crisis. But we started Double Blind anyway because we believe in the value of good journalism to educate and hold stakeholders accountable. We saw what happened in cannabis. Pioneers who put their lives on the line to get patients access to the medicine they needed, getting left behind because they didn't have the capital to compete in the newly regulated market. We've seen what's happened in mental health care and healthcare more broadly, whereby millions of people are suffering, don't trust their doctors, can't afford proper care, and just don't know what to do to get well. In our print magazine, we feature essays, investigations, photojournalism, and much more by world-class journalists who are going everywhere from the ayahuasca tourism industry in Peru to laboratories at leading universities. We're supporting people like you on their journey with psychedelics, and we're covering this movement as it unfolds. This is all made possible by our members who, in exchange for their support, get direct access to psychedelic experts to help them on their journeys of healing and growth, workshops, and a subscription to our beautiful print magazine. Subscribe today at doubleblindmag.com/membership. I do want to talk about your music for a little bit because, you know, most people know you as a musician. I'm curious, and I know you can't tell us your whole life story in the next 15 minutes, but I'm curious how you developed the sonic world and aesthetic that you did. Like, so before you were East Forest, were you like a 15-year-old kid playing Nirvana in a garage somewhere? Like, did you have? Yeah.
I played music like in public school, just a lot of choir and like band and musical theater, just all the music things you can do in school. I did them all and loved it. And then in college, more of that, and took some classes in music and private lessons and electronic music. Again, just more classes and stuff. Didn't major in it, but loved doing it. And started playing piano more, well, really at all in college. I played it a bit as a kid, hated it. We had a shit piano, and I never knew that pianos could sound nice. I never played a nice one. And then in college, they were all nice. And the Steinway daughters went to this college many, many years before. So they had these Steinways everywhere.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and they tuned them, and I just had never like hit a chord on a good instrument, and you know, it vibrates in the keys, and you hear the sound coming up for you from the soundboard. I'd never heard that. And it made me want to play another chord. It's like, wow, look at that. Wow, that's cool. And then I met this friend of mine, Ethan Kreitzer, who is this Jewish kid from Florida. And we became best friends. And he was really into piano too. And he was a huge Bruce Springsteen fan, among other things. And he showed me very quickly, I knew the basics of reading music, but I wasn't very good at it. He's like, look, you can take guitar tabs for any song and play it really easily. Like, you don't have to play the song. It's like, this is a C, like you're playing guitar, like dung, dung, dung.
Oh yeah, I know. That was I had that revelation at 15.
And now it's easy. Oh my God. Suddenly I can play Beatles songs, whatever I can find the guitar tabs for, I could play anything badly. And so I started playing music for, they hired me at the dining hall to like play and like, you know, background music. And I'd play
That's nice.
songs.
The college paid you to do that?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And I wasn't very good at the piano, but it was kind of hilarious. And it became a campus job. And I also played for, there was like dance classes. And that was, of course, a sweet job because it's all women. And then me playing dance, and I do the warm-ups. And it would be the dance teacher would always go like, okay, bum, 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 bum. And then I'd be like, bum, 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 bum. And I just play chords. And that was a campus job. And so I kind of got into it there and I started writing songs. And when I got out of school, that's when the digital revolution happened and you could buy like a Mac and Pro Tools. And I inherited $2,000 from my grandmother. Baba died. And I was going to buy a motorcycle, which is the stupidest idea ever. I didn't know how to ride a motorcycle. I lived in New York City and I'm like, I'm going to buy a motorcycle. It's a death wish. And it was on eBay. And it was like one of those things where like the last 10 seconds and then someone outbid me. But I was actually going to buy this Yamaha Vulcan 750cc. Horrible idea. It was on the Upper East Side. I remember thinking like, well, how are you going to get it down to Brooklyn? I was like, I don't know. I'll just like write it down or figure it out. Like death wish. Saved my life. Use that money instead. I was like, I guess maybe I'll buy some like little recording equipment. And I did that. Made my first record and I made like little pop music songs. And I started a band and had a band in the city and was in other bands and did the whole thing there for many years. It was just like slumming it, played in all the shit venues, the practice spaces with the Rats and all of it. So I did the Lower East Side. Back then it wasn't so much in Brooklyn. It was all like Lower East Side. And then I had my big psychedelic revelation and that was in 2008. And everything just happened at the right time where my life was kind of falling apart and the bands were falling apart and the economic crisis happened and I was being introduced to meditation and ayahuasca and San Pedro and all these things. And so when I started making music for my own psychedelic experience, it was really as a reaction against all these things that weren't working and were collapsing. And I was just making it for me, like really anti-capitalist, like I will never sell this, never. It doesn't have a purpose other than I want to have a good time. And I want to try and recreate music that kind of helps cultivate this feeling that I'd stumbled into on mushrooms, where music and mushrooms had really joined. That was so powerful, but I had no context. Like, what is that? But I knew the music played an important part of those moments. And I wanted to see and it's really just gleaning what I could from the ceremonies, the indigenous ceremonies, like by firsthand experience, and then learning what I could about a little bit of sound healing, whatever was out there, and then just intuition of what I like musically and just searching for chords and progressions I'd feel that feeling. And then when I made that record, the story's almost over. It was really super powerful for me. That's its own story.
Was this music for mushrooms or?
No, my very first record is called The Education of the Individual Soul. It's still my first record.
Okay.
Yeah. And I gave it to this friend I met at my first ayahuasca ceremony, a new friend named Lewis. And he got obsessed with this record, like listened to it like, this is before Spotify. So he listened to this like all the time. And eventually he's like, I'm going to set up a ceremony and you're going to play and we're going to listen to this record. And I was like, what are you talking about, man? Like, he's like, oh, it's cool. It's Saturday, just don't worry about it, And there were 6 people and he rented this little house upstate and we did it. And
ayahuasca?
No, it's always mushrooms.
Always mushrooms.
Yeah. And I played some music, but then we would put on headphones and listen to the record, which is only 45 minutes. And I had to play more around it because, the journey's longer. And so I got a looper and just tried to figure out what to do. And then he just kept setting them up. And then he bought a farm and it became a plant medicine church and all these things over the years. And then I kept showing up and playing and then developing techniques based off of what was just working for the people. Like, well, if I did this or if I try that doesn't work as well. And we built like a protocol and we did that for 6 or 7 years, just that.
Wow.
And then there was thousands of people, coming up. And that really cut my teeth as far as real world anecdotal. How do you guide people with music and a protocol that's for a fairly diverse community in the tri-state area? Our community is like teachers and doctors and UPS drivers and families. It's all people from the city, of color, all different shapes and sizes. And so that was good too. It's like a diverse group. And then in like 2015, I started taking it out into the world more through the yoga world. They just started giving me some jobs. And I was like, how the hell am I going to do this? Like, why would anyone be interested in long form experimental music? And then it was just kind of a very gradual evolution since then. The Ram Dass record was in 2019, and that, of
Mm-hmm.
course, was a bit of a milestone, and then so forth. And so Music for Mushrooms came out in 2019. When that
Mm-hmm.
was the first time I put it out and just said, you know what? I'm not going to dance around what this is and it's for. I'm just going to say it.
Mm. What a journey.
You said 15 minutes or less. So I think that was like 8.
Um, so what have you learned over the years about what it means to make music for ceremony and what it means to create that arc? How has that changed too over time as you've engaged in your own spiritual practices and continued to support people and understand the many different ways that people engage with these medicines?
Yeah. Well, if I say there's one, the most important thing is that whatever you're singing, playing, offering, is that it comes from the heart. It really doesn't matter as much the technique or how pleasing that might sound. That's the thing that in that space we all have a litmus test for. We just know. And if it's from the heart, it connects with another human being, and it works as a piece of guidance. And so in that way, I think I'm in this constant dance between trusting and flowing with improvisation, and that is somewhat from the heart because I feel like you're really trusting the universe in a way. You're being like, I'm gonna just say I don't know what wants to come out, and let's say it's gonna be bigger than my ideas, because that's kind of like me, and that might
Mm-hmm.
be okay, but maybe there's something even more. And so I really started to lean into this improvisational space, uh, strictly in or totally in the ceremony space. I just found, like, look, when I would like play something over again in a way, it just didn't have the same je ne sais quoi. And
Mm-hmm.
when I would just be like, I don't know, I'll just start with this and see where it goes, it would
Mm-hmm.
fall many times into these spaces like, how the hell did that happen?
Yeah.
And that's what all of my ceremonial music is. Um, but in the spaces where it's more the concert space, it's a bit of a hybrid, because I
Mm-hmm.
found it is different with people's expectations and attention spans. Like if they come
Mm-hmm.
to a venue and they're like, all right, there's a convention there. You
They
do
want to
need to
hear
enter.
the song that
You need to
they're
entertain.
listening to
Yeah,
on
you gotta
Spotify.
like. I can't take 30 minutes like build a song. I'm like, I got to move this along a little faster to keep your attention.
They're not
So,
high enough.
exactly. It truthfully, people being on mushrooms and playing for people on mushrooms is one of the greatest gifts I've ever had, because you have their total attention and they want it to be slow and patient. There's no such thing as like, hey, we need to rush this along. Like, it's all good. And that is an incredible gift to someone trying to create something from them artistically, because, I mean, there's nothing more valuable than someone's attention. And especially as an artist. Like, I was just playing the show last week, and this dude is on his phone. Like, he was right in front of me. Like, the front row is like 4 feet in front of me. And then there's
Mm.
another several hundred people, but all I see is this guy.
Mm. Yeah.
And it went on for like 30, 40 minutes, and I didn't say anything. I just kept playing. I just kept it flowing. So there's no feedback from the audience, just this guy. And I finally said after some song, like, thank you very much. And the crowd just erupts in like energy. And I was like, I was so out of touch. This crowd is so with me. And,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just focused on this dude in
Mm-hmm.
front of me,
Mm-hmm.
who maybe is
Metaphor for
indigestion,
life.
or, just
What
like,
you focus on grows stronger.
yeah, it's like the loudest thing in front of me. And, I would just close my eyes and try to like tune everybody out.
This episode is brought to you by Psyched Wellness. Psyched Wellness is on a mission to bring people the healing magic of Amanita muscaria mushrooms with their product Calm. If you haven't heard, there has been a growing number of folks who are exploring the prospect of Amanita muscaria extracts in small doses for anxiety. And Amanita muscaria is not a scheduled substance in the United States, unlike psilocybin. So it's something that more and more people are exploring, getting interested in, and it's something that Psyched Wellness is devoted to. There's some things about calm specifically that are unique and worth noting. So, firstly, it's a natural made supplement made with handpicked Amanita muscaria mushrooms. I'm going to say that's important because there are a lot of supplements where you don't know where they're getting their ingredients. You don't know where they're getting their sources. And so it's really important when you're embarking on a journey of taking a new tincture, taking a new supplement, that you really know that you are purchasing a product that is made with care, made with intention. You know where they're getting their ingredients. Some of the benefits are that this Amanita muscaria extract may promote better sleep and may help you wake up feeling more rested without feeling groggy. It also may provide physical and mental stress support, which is something I know a lot of us are needing at this particular moment. So if you're curious about adding some calm to your life, you can check them out at psyched-wellness.com and use code DOUBLEBLIND for 10% off at checkout. I love hearing you talk about the creative process. Most people don't know this, but I'm also a musician. And yeah, I just relate to this idea of connecting with the heart and tapping into something greater than ourselves and letting it flow, and the sort of faith that's required there. And it is sort of, I don't know, it's like a lesson for how I would like to move through life. And I would assume you feel the same way, that there's like the rat race mind, right? That is full of fear and anxiety and a desire to be perfect and a desire to know. And then there's like a deeper intuitive unfolding that
Yeah.
can be quite beautiful if we enable it to be. And, you know, and I found, so one of the things I found funny is, I was at an ayahuasca ceremony, and it was actually all musicians, prolific musicians, and the facilitators were playing throughout the ceremony. But then at the end, they opened it up to anyone who wanted to share. And one of the facilitators had said, "But this isn't ceremony," was the word they used. So basically, inviting the musicians there to not do what they always do. Like, don't just default to the song that you always play, that you know you're going to knock out of the park, that you know is like your biggest hit when you're performing. Like, just let it flow and see what emerges.
Yeah, that's it. I think I was using the word performance versus, I don't know what the other thing is, but like a performance is sort of like I'm here to, I guess, impress, or I don't
Yeah.
know.
Ceremony is performance in ceremony, as opposed to like sort of the ego driven, how people are perceiving me, as
Right.
opposed to the heart centered, intuitive.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, like I was saying, in the ceremony space, the only thing you're really looking for is the heart thing. And if it comes through music, oh my God, it's so touching. Like it can be someone singing for the first time, and you can just be blown open by it because it's got soul. It's got the soul. It has our soul. Like it has pure. It's just pure soul. There's no mind in it. It's someone saying, "I'm scared and I'm just going to open up," and that's a very loving space. And so if the listener is in that loving attention, that attention is very loving to receive it, beautiful things can happen in that space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. It's so beautiful too to see folks who maybe really love to sing and love to share from the heart, but who think maybe they're not a very good singer. They only sing in the shower. They don't, you know, and then it's the end of the ceremony and they feel safe in the container and they
Yeah,
start to sing. And yeah, I've been deeply moved by people who like, you know, maybe like don't have the greatest pitch, but there's something in the tone and the emotional connectivity of it that just pierces the space.
totally. It's a good lesson for life about just authenticity and vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
Music in itself is, like you're saying, we all have a voice box. We all can sing. And why is that? And why is it that we have music and we all respond emotionally to certain relationships of it? Like, why does a minor chord feel sad? Like, why? And why is
Mm-hmm.
that baked into what it means to be a human being? And then we can put these parts together, so relationship, harmony, and time, rhythm. You put these two things together, and we have this infinite tapestry to essentially tell stories that are like non-dual, just pure metaphor and emotion, just pure feeling and
Mm-hmm.
infinite. Like we can just make as many songs as we want forever. And through them, we're telling stories. And like across cultures, it is so cool. And it feels like this, it speaks the psychedelic language. It's the same language, I feel like. Because, you know, if you check it out, like you're in a psychedelic space and you're having an experience with music, it's almost like you become the music, or you enter into a room that the music is, and all these different synesthetic things. And it functions in that space. Like it feels like it just all makes sense. And the
Mm-hmm.
music can be like a character or a feeling and a color and understanding. And then
Mm-hmm.
you come back into sobriety and you can listen to that same song and you're hearing the same song, but it's almost like it's a translator or a bridge that can go from this three-dimensional space into the non-dual transpersonal space and function there too. And then it's sort of like psychedelics themselves do. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like that's very strange that that exists, and so cool and amazing that that's something we have with us. I mean, I really think we take it for granted how present music is in our lives, in our world, that we don't, by not giving it our full attention in a way, we could be missing out on its potential.
Absolutely. I mean, that's, so many things, right? Not giving them their full attention, we miss out on their potential. Um, and what was I going to say? You said something that really struck me. Oh, I was going to say, in regards to this concept of taking music for granted, that actually studied music journalism in grad school, and I have a mentor of mine, David Haydu, who's a longtime music journalist. He wrote a book on the history of pop music and called Love for Sale. And he writes about how prior to recorded music, that in North America, the way that families had music in the home is that usually someone played piano. Someone
Yeah.
would play piano and everyone would stand around and sing to the piano. And if you
Yeah.
didn't have a piano and there was no one in the house that could make music, you just didn't have music in your house.
Or you just sang songs. Yeah, like a lot of
Yeah.
churches too were just
Right. Yeah.
singing
Yeah. Yeah.
songs. I mean,
Right.
we've been doing that for a long time. But it's
Mm-hmm.
true. Recorded music is when it changed to like we started paying other people to sing for us.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a modern phenomenon.
Think it's like just wild when you think about the fact that you can go on this little device and play like music that was recorded in the 30s, music, and you can stream a West African like reggae station that's on the radio right now. You can play ambient music. You can listen to this.
I
The
know.
experiences I've been able to have in my bedroom with a blindfold, listening to your music on my noise canceling headphones is like insanity. It's like I'm surrounded from every single, I'm fully immersed in this like soundscape experience from a device. Like it's just nuts.
It's absurd, really. And in that absurdity, like I have to give up in of trying to figure that out. I mean, it's not even talking about like AI music. I don't know if you want to go down that rabbit hole, but
I don't think so.
we're hitting peak content in a way, you
Yeah.
know?
So before we wrap our conversation, of course, I want to give you the chance to share anything else that's on your mind, on your heart, but also I think you wanted to tell folks about this movie that you're working on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Music for mushrooms.
Music for mushrooms.
Yeah. We're very, very excited and proud of it. And it's going to be in the theaters in the US this fall. And then at some point after that, it will have a digital release and hopefully other countries as well. We can maybe do some theatrical stuff. So basically, musicformushrooms.com if you want to see where it's playing.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll be in LA in your neck of the woods on October 4th,
Mm-hmm.
2024. New York premiere September 13th at
Okay.
the Angelica. But look, everything we're talking about is sort of what that film is exploring. But I wanted to make a film that was emotional and not necessarily intellectual because I really believe in us learning and understanding from the inside out through emotions and feeling. And film and music itself, especially when you pair them together, can do amazing things through story and feeling to give you a sense of inspiration. And I'm hoping that the subtext of the story in the movie is to encourage you to say, hey, your inner work matters and your path matters, but it's your path. And I'm not exactly sure what your next step is, but it's probably something right in front of you. And do it. Enter.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we worked on it for 3 years, and it's been an amazing journey, and a lot of talented people worked on it, and very excited.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. And I said this in my last interview, but I want to say it in this one too. Thank you for the path that you have walked personally to be able to show up in the ways that you do.
Thank you for saying that. I mean, we're all humans on kind of the same path, but I know we're all on our own paths. It can definitely feel for all of us like isolating at times, where we all definitely
Mm-hmm.
feel like these little isolated beings uh, trying to figure our stuff out. And it's strange these days to share that and also do it at the same time. And I think I try or to not have a big barrier between the public and the private. I don't mean that like, oh, my private life is open. It's not. I just mean that like
Mm-hmm.
I hope there's an authenticity in what I'm actually trying to do from my private work in what I say and the
Mm-hmm.
conversations like we're having. As that
Yeah.
quote Ram Dass says in
Mm-hmm.
the Sit Around the Fire song, it's my favorite quote, that the real work is in the privacy of your own heart.
Yeah, I love that.
It's true. Nobody
Mm-hmm.
knows, but you know. And I am trying to impart this idea with the film, like, yeah, that thing, that actually matters.
Mm.
And you might be telling yourself, A, it doesn't. We're told it doesn't matter. And on top of that, you might be pretty tough in there. You're like, what if you played with that a bit
Mm-hmm.
and gave that some love and attention?
Well, I can't speak for all the folks who don't know you, but I can say that you've always come across as incredibly authentic to me. And I said this before, but I'll say it on the air. We really appreciate the ways that you've also showed up for Double Blind all these years. And
Ditto.
it's never felt like, yeah, it's never felt like you're like overextending yourself because you're supposed to. It just feels like you're a good person that connects with our work, and we feel the same way about you. And so I'm sure that that comes across to the folks
Yeah.
who don't know you personally.
I told you that before we met. I bought your first copies. And I
Yeah,
ordered them and they
the
shipped.
collector's
And
item issue
yeah,
one. So we
yeah,
gotta
I'm into
keep
it.
that in your
I'm old
coffee table.
school. Yeah, I like
Oh man, it was so lovely to talk to you, and I look forward to seeing you hopefully in LA for the screening.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I hope to see you there. That'd be fun.
Have a good day. Talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate your support, time, and attention. If you want to read some of our incredible journalism on the world of psychedelics, including the article written by East Forest for the print magazine, you can find all of that at doubleblindmag.com. We work with absolutely amazing journalists and photographers who travel all around the world interviewing indigenous stewards of plant medicines, researchers, therapists, politicians, you name it. And it's all made possible with the support of our membership, which comes with a subscription to our beautiful print magazine, access to a private community of psychedelic lovers, workshops with psychedelic experts, discounts to our classes, and so much more. So if you're enjoying this podcast and all the other things that we offer to the community for free, we hope you'll consider subscribing at doubleblindmag.com/membership. You can also hit that link in the show notes. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can check out the rest of Magic Hour Season 1 at doubleblindmag.com/magic hour, or you can stream it on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple. You'll find us on all the social media platforms at doubleblindmag.com. I also want to give a shout out to the amazing folks at Human Content who are producing this podcast and helping make it possible. They do a lot of great podcasts other than this one. So if you're into podcasts, you can check them out on Instagram and TikTok at Human Content Pods. Thanks again for listening. I am your host, Shelby Hartman. Special thanks to our guest, East Forest. Our executive producers are Aaron Corney, Rob Goldman, Shanti Brooke, and Alex Field from the Double Blind team, who also edits the show. Our engineer is Jason Portizo. Our music is by Oma. To learn about our Double Blind Magic Hour program disclaimer and ethics policy and submission verification and licensing terms, you can go to doubleblindmag.com/magic hour. Now let's take you out on Opening by East Forest. Thanks for watching. And if you're thinking, gosh, I really need more Double Blind Magic Hour in my life, well, you can start listening now by clicking on that playlist button right over there. New episodes are out every Monday, so please subscribe and join us each week on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.